Good evening. Rescue workers in Oklahoma City are still searching for survivors after the tornado which devastated entire neighborhoods yesterday. It's been confirmed that 24 people died, including 9 children, most of them in the suburb of Moore. Officials fear that number could rise. The tornado was more than a mile wide and travelled 20 miles, moving from Newcastle and on to Moore in Oklahoma City. From there, our correspondent Alistair Leithhead has sent this report.
It's about a mile right at our tail.
This is the moment the tornado struck, a huge and terrifying force of nature. It touched down just south of Oklahoma City and began its 40-minute path of destruction, tearing up everything in its way.
That's a big, big tornado.
It leveled a neighborhood, ripping homes apart with 200-mile-an-hour winds.
This is terrible. This is war zone terrible.
Fires burned as power lines came down and gas leaked from ruptured pipes. They know about tornadoes here. Warning sirens had given many people a chance to take cover. This family survived the storm and emerged unscathed. There were many stories of near misses.
The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away.
We thought we died because we were inside the cellar door. We locked the cellar door once we saw it coming. It got louder. And next thing you know, you see the latch coming undone, and we couldn't reach for it, and it ripped open the door, and it just glass and debris started slamming on us, and we thought we were dead, to be honest.
It just tore through it like a truck just run right through the center of it.
But then the focus began to switch to a primary school that felt the twister's full force.
It is, like you see, completely destroyed.
The warning had not come quickly enough to get everyone out. Children and their teachers clung to the walls as the roof was ripped off, but many were buried by the rubble. Firefighters moved fast to free them from the debris. Some were badly hurt. One by one they emerged.
I really got stuck because all the desks were on top of us and the teacher got stuck. And so somebody had to help her because the desk was on her leg.
For the parents, an agonizing wait to see if their children had been pulled out alive. Not all had emotional reunions. This is the path that the tornado took. It's as wide as you can see, and it goes on as far as you can see. And just over there, amid all that wreckage, is where the school once was. House after house, street after street, destroyed. Cars picked up and thrown around like toys. Trees shredded amid the tangle of wood and metal. People's possessions scattered across the neighborhood. For the few who made it through the police roadblocks, the cleanup has already started. Many were just grateful they'd survived.
It was really scary. I thought I was going to die there for a while. I just laid in there and on the ground and held my dog close to me and just waited to see what was going to happen.
President Obama said the focus was on rescue, but also recovery.
For all those who've been affected, we recognize that you face a long road ahead. In some cases, there will be enormous grief that has to be absorbed, but you will not travel that path alone.
Search and rescue teams with sniffer dogs went from house to house to make sure nobody had been left trapped below the rubble. But as the work continued, the storm clouds were gathering again, and forecasters warned more tornadoes could be on the way. Alistair Leithhead, BBC News, Moore in Oklahoma.
3/4 of the world's tornadoes strike in North America, with most hitting an area stretching from South Dakota through Oklahoma to Texas. It's known as Tornado Alley. Oklahoma City was hit by another huge tornado 14 years ago, during which scientists reported the fastest winds ever recorded on Earth. Our science editor, David Schuckman, is with me here with more details.
Thanks, Hugh. Yes, this is the season for tornadoes, and we're talking about the region that gets hit hardest by them. But even so, this storm has taken everyone by surprise. Its speed, its size, its sheer power, making it unusually dangerous, as we've seen.
Oh my God!
The terrifying approach of one of the most violent forms of weather. Most tornadoes only last a few minutes and pass over fields. This one just kept going for 45 minutes and headed straight for the town of Moore.
There's going to be a lot of damage produced by this tornado as it keeps tracking, Gary.
This is the month that sees the highest number of tornadoes. Many pass almost unnoticed. Not this one. America gets hit by tornadoes more than any other country because of its geography. Cold, dry air from the Rockies collides with warm, humid air from the Gulf of Mexico, triggering huge thunderstorms right over what's called Tornado Alley. Now, this area spans several states, including Oklahoma, and tornadoes are frequent here. So let's take a look in more detail at how tornadoes form. First, if the storms are large enough, they pull air up from the ground. This forms a connection with a column of air which starts to twist. The faster the rotation, the greater the destructive power. Yesterday, the winds reached 200 miles per hour. Now, most tornadoes are narrow, but this one was up to 2 miles across, all of which made it unusually damaging. America's worst tornado struck back in 1925. More than 600 people were killed. So tornadoes are nothing new, and so far there's no evidence that over the past century that climate change is causing more of them.
With these erratic, unpredictable twisters that have ravaged wide areas of the nation.
In the 1950s, early warning systems were put in place. But tornadoes are notoriously unpredictable. The storms that create them can be forecast, but not the tornadoes themselves. Scientists are trying to understand them, and one researcher who's worked in Oklahoma says it's really difficult.
We're quite good at the moment at predicting the larger scale weather patterns, but as you get down to individual thunderstorms, basically individual clouds, large clouds that put down tornadoes, that's a real challenge, and we just don't have the computer power to be able to model the atmosphere on that sort of scale.
Even the forecasters in Tornado Alley have run into trouble.
You know, JD, in 20 years I've never said this, but I think it's our time to go.
The weather system that generated the deadly tornado was getting very close to this studio.
Now, everybody down below, let's go!
Now, it might look as if tornadoes are becoming more frequent. In fact, they're not. It's just that more people are living in harm's way. Meanwhile, the storm that caused the tornado isn't finished. There are warnings of intense rainfall, and there's always the risk of more tornadoes. Hugh.
David, thanks very much. David Schuckman there for us, our science editor. Well, for the latest on the rescue operation, let's go back then to Oklahoma City and our correspondent, Alistair Leithhead, who's there with the latest for us. Alistair, what can you tell us?
Well, the latest from the search and rescue side of the operation is that that's winding down. The fire chief says he's 98% sure now that there's nobody left in the wreckage of these houses. I mean, 17 miles, almost a mile and a half across, that's an awful lot of houses to go through. He says that each of them is going to be searched at least once. By the end of today, he hopes that each of them will have been searched 3 times, just to make sure. We've seen hundreds of extra search and rescue teams coming in today with dogs to back up the 200 that worked through the night. And we've also heard that the storm has actually been upgraded from a Category 4 to a Category 5, which is the highest level that you can have for this kind of a twister. And that was based on some of the evidence that's been gathered by the teams on the ground, piecing through all the wreckage to try to establish exactly the strength of it and to move on from here. Hugh.
Alistair, thanks very much. Alistair Leithhead there for us with the latest in Oklahoma City.